In the Garden of Eden story, God asks a question that should not exist. The all-knowing Creator walks through the garden and calls out, "Where are you?" If God already knows everything, why ask a question with such an obvious answer? To feel the tension, imagine the scene in slow motion. The garden is quiet after the storm of disobedience. Adam and Eve have eaten the fruit, their eyes are opened, and for the first time, they feel something new: shame. They sew fig leaves together and hide among the trees, trying to escape the gaze of the one who made them. Then, the sound of footsteps. In the cool of the day, God walks in the garden, the place that was meant to be a meeting point between heaven and earth. This is not a distant deity, but a God who moves toward people. Instead of thunder and fire, there is a voice calling, "Where are you?" Here is where the mystery begins. In the ancient world, gods were often imagined as powerful but distant rulers. You might fear them, try to appease them, but you did not expect them to seek you in your failure. Yet the Bible explained its God in a different way. The first question God ever asks humans is not "What have you done?" but "Where are you?" In Hebrew, the question is a single word, ayeka. It is not a request for coordinates on a map. It is a relational question. It sounds more like, "Where have you gone? Where are you in relation to me?" When we explore the Hebrew meaning, this becomes less about geography and more about the human heart. Think about how the story flows. Just before this moment, Adam and Eve choose to define good and evil for themselves. They take the fruit, step outside the design of their Creator, and suddenly feel exposed. Shame drives them to cover up and hide. In that emotional landscape, the question, "Where are you?" becomes an invitation, almost a doorway back into conversation. This is one of the key layers of Genesis 3 meaning. The God of the Bible does not start with accusation, but with a question that gives space for honesty. It is as if God opens a path for confession, not because he lacks information, but because humans need to step into the light by their own words. Different readers over history have noticed this. Some see the question as a gentle act of mercy, giving Adam time to respond. Others read it as a kind of mirror, held up to human beings in every generation. When we hear "Where are you?" we are invited to ask, "Where am I really? In my relationship with God, with others, with myself?" The ancient biblical background also helps us. In many temple stories from surrounding cultures, the gods demand that humans bring them food and serve their needs. In the Eden story, the garden looks more like a temple, where God provides for humans and walks with them. So when humans break the relationship, the surprising movement in the story is that God still comes into the garden. He does not vanish. He steps toward the place of failure. The literary design of Genesis supports this. The story starts with a God who speaks creation into existence. Then that same voice speaks to humans, blesses them, and gives them a vocation. After their disobedience, the same voice calls again. The pattern shows a God who keeps initiating relationship, even when humans pull away. We can also see a larger thread that runs through the whole Bible. Later, God will call out to Abraham, "Go from your country." He will call to Moses from a burning bush. He will pursue runaway prophets like Jonah. The question "Where are you?" becomes the opening scene in a long story of a God who seeks people who are lost, hiding, or afraid. In the stories about Jesus, this theme continues. He walks into spaces where people are ashamed or excluded, and he asks questions that draw them out rather than push them away. It is the same relational movement we first see in Eden. The ancient context and the whole arc of Scripture help us see that. Genesis 3 is not only a story about punishment, it is also a story about pursuit. So why does an all-knowing God ask, "Where are you?" Because the question is not for his information, it is for our transformation. It invites humans to stop hiding, to name their fear, and to step out of the trees into honest relationship. Maybe that is why this short line has echoed through history. When we feel like hiding, when we are tempted to cover our failures with our own fig leaves, the story of Eden still whispers that question, "Where are you?" Not to trap us, but to find us, and to draw us back into a conversation that began in a garden and continues in every human heart.